In the 3rd year of my marriage to Pagion, he brought back a woman raised by wolves from the battlefield. To give that woman a proper status, he locked me in an abandoned courtyard with a large padlock. Why, Jeanne, I'll tell everyone you died of illness. Don't worry. I'll still take good care of you after I marry Chen Yu. I stroked my swollen belly, wanting to escape back home. But the guard I trusted most cut open my stomach, and I bled to death. So he too was in love with the wolf girl. I floated in the air, watching coldly as my elder brother, who rushed to the Marquise's mansion upon learning of my death, became enchanted by the wolf girl. For her sake, he helped cover up the cause of my death. After that, the young talents of the capital flocked to her, and noble sons supported her with all their might, all just to make her smile. It was only then that I learned we were all just characters in a storybook. The wolf girl was that irresistible heroine. Anyone who saw her would fall at her feet, given another life. I found the wolf girl early and raised her with care, showering her with endless love. Sister. She happily threw herself into my arms. I want to be with sister forever. Really, if you want to be with me forever, you'll have to help me fulfill my wishes. I sighed while holding her. She looked up at me, her eyes clear and pure. So who does sister want to disappear next? The first thing I did after my rebirth was to ride swiftly to Nanjun to find the wolf girl. The sturdy iron cage was solid and secure. A thin, dark figure was desperately slamming against the inside. Blood from the impacts covered her head and face. At this time, the wolf girl had not yet been tamed and pampered. Her gaze was fierce, her hair disheveled, her whole body caked in crusted dirt, her features almost indiscernible. There was no trace of how she looked in my previous life, wearing a pink ruquan, her hair full of pearls and jade ornaments, standing before me and asking me in that sweet, naive way, "So, you are Brother Pei's wife?" Noticing my gaze, she stopped slamming and looked over, gradually calming down. I smiled slightly and stepped toward her. "Miss, it is dangerous," Zhao Shan, who was guarding by the cage, hurriedly warned. His words showed concern for my safety, but his body instinctively blocked the cage. How truly interesting. Even though the wolf girl currently still looked like a savage, she could already make those who approached her change. Insolent. Hongju behind me scolded coldly. "Zhao Shan, our mission is to protect the Miss's safety, not to interfere with her actions." Zhao Shan lowered his head and pressed his lips together, but his body didn't move. Understandable. In my previous life, he could cut open my belly to take out my child for her sake, fearing I might bring the child in my womb back to my parents' home and cause some mishap that would put the wolf girl in danger. He said, "Miss, you have a noble status, a prestigious husband's family. You have everything. Miss Chen Yu has had such a hard journey. Why can't you just give in to her?" Zhao Shan and Hongju. One was the guard my father left me since childhood, and the other was the shadow guard my mother gave me. When I got married, I didn't take anyone else, only brought the two of them. The bond from growing up together made me trust him like my own left and right hands. Yet in the end, I died miserably at his hands. I gave him a casual glance and walked straight to the cage. The filthy person bared her teeth. Years of eating raw meat had made her eyes bloodshot, full of wildness. I reached out my hand. She calmed down. In my previous life, Peijian brought her out of the mountain forest, and she was willing to step into the treacherous capital for him. Even knowing he already had a wife and was about to have a child, she still followed him without hesitation. How deeply devoted they were to each other. What a pity. In this life, I found her first. I smiled and placed my hand on top of her dry hair. The redness in her eyes faded, replaced by curiosity and confusion. "You are human, not beast. From this day on, I'll take you back to the human world to enjoy the beauty you should have had. How about it?" I looked at her gently. I didn't know if she understood, but I only saw her squint her eyes and nuzzle my palm with her head. However, just as I was about to pull back my hand and turn around, a sharp pain suddenly shot through my wrist. Crimson blood gushed out from where the wolf girl had bitten me. What followed were two sounds of swords being drawn. Hongju pointed her sword at Chen Yu, while Zhao Xian pointed his sword at Hongju, or rather, at me. I paid no attention to the movement behind me, still speaking softly to the wolf girl. "Are you unwilling to come with me? If you are unwilling, I'll let you go." Hearing this, she bit down on me even tighter, her eyes full of anxiety. Then she turned her head to look at Zhao Shen. Her eyes turned red again, crawling with killing intent. I smiled with satisfaction. "I understand. Rest easy. I'll be fine, and I won't abandon you." Something big happened on the way back to the capital with the wolf girl. The convoy was suddenly attacked by wolves, and all 4 guards, including Zhao Xian, died at the jaws of the wolves. I was standing not far away when Zhao Xian died, quietly watching as the wolf girl bit through his neck where no one could see. His lips quivered, his face full of terror. Only after he stopped breathing did the wolf girl get up to tidy her disheveled appearance. But when she turned and saw me, panic and grievance flashed in her eyes. Her hands clutched tightly at the new dress I had changed her into. Her feet didn't move an inch, until I curved my lips and beckoned to her. "Come here." Only then did she happily run over to me, nuzzling my arm with her head to please me. After that, the journey was smooth, with no more complications. Even the beast tamer and cage I had specially brought from the capital went unused. As long as I was around, the wolf girl was docile and well-behaved. As if she had no bones, she clung to me all day long. Even Hongju couldn't help but wonder aloud. Could it be that this wolf girl is like the mystical beasts in storybooks? Whoever's blood she drinks, she forms a bond with and obeys. Hearing this, I just smiled. Perhaps, who knows? The carriage ride back was slow. From Nanjun to the capital, we passed through 13 prefectures, each with its own local customs and unique flavors. I intended to show the wolf girl this world properly. Of course, the most important thing was to test her charming, every own female lead attribute. Mixia family had shops in every prefecture, so I had Hongju take her to inspect the storefronts. Then I discovered that when the wolf girl appeared wearing a veil, others wouldn't notice her. But once she appeared with her face bare, the gazes of surrounding men would almost immediately fall upon her. Even though she was only 15, with rough skin from years of roaming the mountain forests, her whole body thin and gaunt, with no beauty to speak of, they would still become infatuated with her as if they'd lost their minds. It was the same at several shops in a row. Beasts are often more sensitive than humans, the wolf girl even more so. She loathed those gazes, without me having to teach her. From then on, whenever she went out, she would already put on the veil herself. And during this month and a half, after figuring out her fondness and dependence on me, I began to psychologically tame her. When she did things that pleased me, I would generously give her hugs and personally make her some pastries. On ordinary days, I would leave her with Hongzu. Unless necessary, I would never give her the chance to get close to me. I don't know how Hongzu taught her, but after a few days apart, when she saw me again with eyes full of expectation, opening her arms asking for a hug, she could already call out to me in a halting voice. "Sis." The journey back to the capital took over 2 months. We arrived just in time for the rainy season in the capital. The rain had been drizzling for several days. The wolf girl didn't like rainy days. Listlessly lying on my lap, the carriage suddenly stopped. "Miss, the young lord from Duke Yan's residence is at the city gate to receive you." The next moment, Peijian's voice came through. "Ajen, your brother said you went back to Qizhou to pay respects to your uncle and aunt. Was the journey all right?" This was my first time meeting Peijian after rebirth. Even though I was fully prepared, my hands were still trembling uncontrollably. He was my childhood sweetheart Fianque Fei. Once upon a time, my parents were still alive. As a boy, he would often climb over the wall into our yard and sleep all night in the pear tree. Occasionally, he'd sleep so deeply he'd fall from the tree and faceplant, then be chased away by my father wielding a stick. He'd scratch his head and say, Jen doesn't like going out. I just missed her too much and wanted to see her. Please don't be angry, Uncle. The year he became the martial champion and paraded through the streets on horseback. The young man in his billowing red robe brought back a garden full of flowers from outside the city to the Shi residence. He said, Jen, a courtyard full of spring colors for you. May my Jen be safe and blessed, year after year. The young man's burning love made my heart warm. Even though my father died in battle, and our family had no successors at court. Even though he was the Duke's son, the Crown Prince's cousin with a limitless future, he still resolutely entered the palace to request an imperial marriage decree. Jen, I will maintain the glory of the Shai family and won't let it fall into decline. Later on, he brought back Chen Yu. When facing me, his eyes held nothing but annoyance and impatience. Chen Yu is pure and kind. You inner courtyard women are skilled at scheming. If I made her a concubine, I am afraid she couldn't withstand your torment. Forget it. If I divorced you, you wouldn't survive anyway. From now on, just live quietly in this abandoned courtyard. I won't mistreat you. And to outsiders, I'll say you died of severe illness. Just one thing, after Chen Yu and I marry, don't harbor any thoughts you shouldn't have. Otherwise, I will never forgive you. At that time, we had known each other for 10 years, been married for 3, and I was pregnant. With just a few words, he wanted to erase all traces of my existence in this world, imprisoning me in a tiny space, like a lamb awaiting slaughter. And he acted as if it were a gracious favor from on high. Sensing something was off with me, the wolf girl opened her pitch, black eyes, looking through the carriage curtain at Peijian outside. The depths of her eyes were like a dark, secluded spring. I patted her head and ordered coldly, enter the city. Peijian's smile froze at the corners of his lips. He chased after the carriage, calling out several times. Jen. Why Jen? Passers-by on the road all turned to look because of his actions. He paid no heed and insisted on following the carriage. He didn't know why I was treating him this way. To him, I had only been gone for a few months. But for me, I had lived through a past life, and this one. We are destined to fight to the death in this lifetime. I settled the wolf girl at an estate my mother left me. Hongju stayed behind to accompany her. Miss has not yet given her a name. Chen Yu. When Peijian was having sex with her in the study, he once said the wolf girl's beauty rivaled Shishi, so he named her Chen Yu now. I also need her beauty. Then let this name continue on. Give her food, clothing, and expenses according to my own allowance, and have her learn to speak and some basic etiquette as soon as possible. I don't have much time, less than half a year until Peijian comes to propose, like in my previous life. I glanced at the wolf girl who had climbed onto the swing and was playing happily. As I left, several hoarse, stammering sounds came from behind. Sister, don't abandon me. Chen Yu anxiously chased after the carriage, having fallen who knows how many times, her knees covered in dust, looking at me with tears in her eyes. Hongju caught up and pressed her face down onto the ground. The carriage went further and further away, until her figure became just a tiny dot. For the next 2 months, I didn't go see her, only occasionally sending some carefully selected storybooks for Hongju to read to her, or sending some pastries I made with my own hands. Hongju would send a letter every 2 days. The letters said Chen Yu learned everything very quickly. Her speech and enunciation had already become very clear. And the words on the most recent letter were crooked and wobbly, like those of a child who had just started learning. There were only 6 characters on it. Sister, miss you, awaiting your return. I became intrigued. I had originally thought that in my previous life, Peijian must have painstakingly taught her for a beast to live like a human. I never expected the wolf girl's learning ability to be so astonishing. I had someone prepare a carriage to go outside the city. As soon as I got off, a ball of fiery red crashed into my arms. A scent identical to mine hit me head on. Sister. I pushed her away, stepped back 2 paces, and looked her up and down. The female lead was indeed different from ordinary people. In just 2 months, she had transformed completely. Her thin, frail body had become firm and filled out. Her dry, yellowish hair now had a healthy sheen, and even her features had matured, revealing the stunning beauty from her previous life. Only her skin wasn't as pale as when I saw her in my previous life. It was a complexion that looked healthy at a glance. Chenyu's speech was already very fluent, but her voice didn't sound as bright as in her previous life. On the contrary, it was deep. She held onto my arm and wouldn't let go, throwing out questions one after another. Sister, why didn't you come see me? Sister Hongzhu said, you are getting married. Getting married means you'll be with someone else every day. Is it that person at the city gate that day? Finally, she asked me. Sister, do you want to marry him? Hongzhu said that after I left again, Chenyu stopped wanting to sleep at night, always climbing onto the roof to look in the direction of the capital. I wonder what she is thinking about. I recalled that night when I stayed over at the manor. Chenyu rested her head on my lap. I told Chenyu, by parents' orders and matchmakers' words, some things cannot be avoided simply because I don't want them. Besides, our marriage was bestowed by the emperor. But Pei Jian is hypocritical and heartless, definitely not a good match. Before I could finish, I lowered my head and tears fell, though she didn't quite understand what I meant. Seeing me cry, she crawled over and hugged me. Don't cry, Jiaji. If you don't want to, then don't marry him. I shook my head. My marriage is not mine to decide. Her eyes lit up as if stars had fallen into them. Then I'll just make him disappear. I just want Jiaji to be happy, and then stay with Jiaji forever. She laughed happily, listing all the things she wanted to do with me in the future. I quietly watched her. Such a sincere and passionate person is indeed very likable. What a pity. My gaze gradually turned cold. Hongzhu wrote in her letter that Chenyu was working harder than before and was also gradually becoming silent. Keep an eye on her. I replied with 3 characters unhurriedly. After some more time passed when I went to see her, Chenyu was no longer as lively as when she first came out of the mountains. Melancholy had crept into her brows and eyes. Occasionally, she would hold a storybook and ask me, why can the women in these storybooks only be rootless duckweed and not towering green cypresses like men? Does this world devour women? I knew she had completely become a person. As long as one is human, they have desires. For those desires, she would go through hell and high water. It all depends on what she wants. So I told her, indeed, life is hard for women in this world. Marriage is like their second reincarnation. If they encounter a bad man, someone like Pei Jian, then that woman has nothing left to live for. I wasn't lying. In my past life, after marrying Pei Jian, I indeed met a miserable end. So speaking of it, I felt no burden at all. Chenyu's eyes gradually turned red. Then I'll kill him for you, sister. I stroked her head and pretended to stop her. But this is the capital. I don't want you to put yourself in danger for me. She held my hand. Sister, you gave me flesh and blood. I am willing to be your blade, and I want to be your shield too. In this life, my life is yours. Besides Chenyu, Pei Jian also had me on his mind. Since we parted at the city gate that day, he came every day, either sending letters or sending gifts. Pastries from Baofengjai, fish from Qingming Pool, all things I used to like. He wanted to beg me to see him once, to find out what he had done wrong. I had the gatekeeper turn him away and refused to see him, returning everything he sent the way it came. The noble young marquis stood blankly outside the gate, like an abandoned stray dog, through the crack in the door. I watched the anxiety on his face turn to bewilderment, then to sorrow. Jen, though, I don't know why you are angry. It is okay. I'll wait for you. We will get married. He forced a smile while murmuring, then turned and left. Not long after, the daily gifts from the Marquise's residence stopped coming. Rumors began to spread around town. The heir of Zhongyang Marquise's residence accompanied the Marchioness to burn incense at a temple outside the city, where he happened to meet a peasant girl. He fell in love with her at first sight and wanted to break off the engagement with Shi Huaizhen to marry the peasant girl. The rumors grew fiercer, eventually twisting into claims that the Xie family's daughter lacked virtue and that Pei Jian would rather have a peasant girl than the Xia girl. Yet, the Duke's residence and Pei Jian remained silent throughout, neither clarifying nor stopping the rumors. Well, back when the engagement was made, my father was still alive, so the match was considered equal in status. Now that the Xia family has fallen, they naturally look down on us, hoping to ruin my reputation and find another noble lady. As for Chenyu, it is merely a man's romantic affair, nothing worth worrying about in their eyes. Hongzhu, standing before me, handed me a letter. Miss Chenyu has entered the Duke's residence. I set down the writing brush in my hand and tilted my head to look out the window. Half the sky had darkened at some point, winds rising and clouds churning. A sign that a storm was coming. I said, "Got it." My elder brother came back from outside the city in a great rage. What does that Pei Jian mean by this? He was the one who went to the palace to request the imperial marriage decree, and now he is the one who wants to marry a peasant girl. Whose face is he slapping? He paced back and forth in the study fuming, unable to do anything but curse and shout. After our parents died in battle, my elder brother Shi Jin won several victories with the support of our father's subordinates in the army, and was later appointed as the 4th-rank General Weibei. After returning to the capital, he only took an idle post and never accomplished anything more. He needed this marriage alliance with the Pei family, yet couldn't accept others saying he propped up the general's manor through in-laws. I once had expectations for this brother of mine, too. I was very spoiled as a child, but mother said we were a family of military generals. Even if we didn't go to battle to kill enemies, women should still know some martial arts for self-defense. So every time I practiced martial arts, I practiced while crying. Mother was strict, holding a ruler beside me to pick out my mistakes. My brother would deliberately make mistakes to draw mother's attention. So when Pei Jian wanted to lock me up to die for Chenyu, the first thing I thought of was going home for help. But upon learning of my death, when he came to the Marquis Manor and saw Chenyu, he only said one thing: "Dead, good that she is dead. Being a stepping stone for Miss Chenyu is her blessing." My brother was still cursing away. He suddenly looked at me with disgust. "It must be that you acted haughty and angered him the day you returned to the city. You useless thing. Can't even keep a man wrapped around your finger." I lowered my eyelashes and said meekly, "If this marriage is called off, we can just find another. Brother needn't get so worked up." He sneered. "Don't think I don't know what you are scheming. Don't forget, you are just a woman of the inner courtyard. With father dead, I am your heaven. When the time comes, whether I marry you off to peddlers and lackeys or street ruffians, that will depend on my mood." Only then did I raise my head. In my brother's eyes was undisguised malice. I also smiled. It is all up to brother to decide. Zijin was right. I am a woman of the inner quarters. My father, brother, and husband are all my sky. But what if the husband is not a husband, and the brother is not a brother? 2 days later, an invitation was sent from the Duke Cheng'en's residence. The grand lady of Duke Cheng'en's residence was celebrating her birthday. The old duke had once served as His Majesty's Grand Tutor, and though he had now retired, his status remained revered. Pei Jian will be there today. I don't care what method you use. You must salvage this marriage for me. I ignored my brother's ravings and stared blankly at the 2 outfits the maid brought in. One light blue, one red. I was thinking, if Chenyu wore that red one, she would look beautiful. In my previous life, every time we met, she always seemed to wear such bold colors, setting off her lovely face to be even more stunning. So I pointed at the blue outfit. I'll wear this one today. The Duke Chengin's residence was indeed lively. After greeting the grand lady and the old duke with my brother, I began looking for someone. Isn't that Xia Huaizhen? She is about to have her engagement broken off and still has the nerve to come to the birthday banquet. Back then, I even envied how well young Duke Pei treated her. But in the end, she was outdone by a peasant woman. Straight up became a discarded wife. Several mocking laughs drifted over. It was a few noble family girls who were on bad terms with me. I was about to avoid them when I heard another bold female voice ring out. A few gossipmongers have the nerve to run around everywhere. Yet Xia Huaizhen is the daughter of the late general who defended the nation, a descendant of a hero. Why can't she come? The few women instantly fell silent. Women from noble families all took pride in being virtuous, proper, calm, and graceful. Clearly, they had never seen such a bold woman who'd go all out right in their faces. The corners of my lips curved up, and I walked out from behind a nearby tree, calling softly, "Sister Wei." The woman turned around, her eyes shifting from sharp to moist. We met again after a lifetime apart. With just one glance, I knew. She had also come back. The person I was looking for. The daughter of the left guard of the Imperial Army, Wei Xin. In her past life, she married my elder brother and was the sister-in-law who doted on me the most. Shi Jin didn't like her wielding swords and spears, yet he greedily craved the benefits her maternal family brought him. Later, after my brother met Chen Yu, she was cast aside by him. Just like me, unloved by her husband, the servants followed their master's attitude and also treated her with contempt, humiliating her. She could only barely scrape by in the backyard. When I was floating above, I saw how she desperately tried to go to the Marquise's mansion to seek justice for me. Such a proud woman. Yet she died miserably in a filthy alley, while trying to seek justice for me with no one to turn to. In the end, all she received was her brother's remark, "How can a slut like you be worthy of entering my Shi family's ancestral hall?" So they hastily wrapped her body in a straw mat and threw it into the mountains. In the previous life at this time, she should have already been engaged to Shi Jin. Now that there had been no action for so long, I knew something was wrong. As I looked at her with my eyes feeling a bit warm, Wei Ji had already come over and pulled me into his embrace. She was about to say something when a somewhat low female voice sounded at just the right moment. "Sister." It was Chen Yu. She had come with Pei Jian. She was clearly wearing a delicate lotus, pink ruquan today, yet her expression was somewhat gloomy at this moment. Her gaze fell on the hands Wei Ji and I held together. Wei Ji, who was holding my hand, turned and sneered coldly at Pei Jian, who was coming this way from afar. What does the young duke mean by this? Openly bringing such a seductress to the Grand Madame's birthday banquet, and before Huaizhen has even entered the family, this seductress already calls her sister. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? Pei Jian walked closer, glanced at me, and then looked away. He looked thinner, with dark circles all under his eyes. Hearing Wei Ji's words, he took Chen Yu's hand and sneered coldly. What is there to be laughed at for bringing my beloved to show her off in front of everyone? There were many young lords and ladies around, and hearing his words, all their gazes fell on me, scrutinizing, mocking. But I had already found the answer I wanted today, so I wouldn't bother with his low-class provocations. I simply gave a slight curtsy, as long as the young duke is happy. Then I pulled Wei Ji and left. Zi Huaizhen, remember, you were the one who abandoned me first. After today, don't come crawling back to beg me. This young lord wants to see, if I don't marry you, who else would dare want you? You can just wait to die old and alone at home. My footsteps didn't stop. Only when I had walked far away did I turn back again. Elder brother had already struck up a conversation with them. A pair of eyes kept looking toward Chen Yu. After living through a lifetime, you still haven't seen clearly. You still like him. Wei Min's voice, frustrated at my failure to improve, exploded beside my ear. I hurriedly withdrew my gaze and waved my hand, being playful for once. Sister misunderstood. How could I? Not skinning him alive and pulling out his tendons would already be merciful of me. Wei Min sighed. The difficult thing is, although Duke Yan wants to break off your engagement with Pei Jian doesn't seem to want to let go. Now his family holds high power and authority, controls military forces, and he himself was the top martial scholar. I can't even kill him for you. I found it funny and joked. Then why don't the two of us join forces? Perhaps there might be a glimmer of hope. Don't joke with me. She furrowed her brows. What are you going to do? It wasn't easy to get a second chance. You can't step into the same fire pit again. I won't. But as for you, although you haven't formally gotten engaged to my elder brother, the marriage contract hasn't been returned. So, you must have troubles too. Her eyes tinged with sorrow. Yes, you know about my stepmother. After mother passed away, father remarried, and now they have sons and daughters of their own. I've become an outsider, with my marriage in my stepmother's hands. If I don't please them, my mother's memorial tablet will likely be removed from the Wei family ancestral hall, and her name on the genealogy will be crossed out. But why should they? Back then, if my mother hadn't married into the Wei family, who knows what sorry state they would have fallen into. The moment my maternal grandfather's family declined, they never stopped using soft knives to drive my mother to death, and now they want to strip away even the last trace of her existence. Her eyes were red, her tone filled with resentment. Even a strong-willed woman like her was still trapped by worldly customs and propriety. It seems, as Chen Yuruo said, this world indeed devours women. Whether her father or my brother, they're all parasites sucking blood while clinging onto women. Then how about we kill my brother? As soon as these words came out, Wei Min spat out a mouthful of hot tea, then looked at me in disbelief. What did you say? Clearly, even having lived a second life, she had never had such rebellious thoughts. I smiled at her, and as if I wasn't talking about killing my brother, but discussing the weather. I said it again. I said, kill Shijin. Kill our way to the heavens. For you, for me, to fight a way out for us. Your family has no male heirs. If your brother dies, you'll probably be devoured alive by the clan elders. When that time comes, your fate may be no better than your previous life. Before she could finish speaking, her eyes were full of confusion from being unable to break free of the cage. I knew what she wanted to say. As an unmarried woman, if there were no men left in the family, let alone the family property being divided up by the clan, even my marriage, my very life would likely be at others' mercy. Then let him use this life to shine one last time, to fight for a future for me. A wild beast attack incident occurred in the capital. The capital magistrate posted notices throughout the city, warning the people to lock their doors and windows when sleeping at night. Several noble ladies were attacked. Somehow the beast broke through layers of guards and infiltrated the inner quarters. Fortunately, they only had their clothes torn by the beast's claws and were frightened, but no one was injured. Those noble ladies were exactly the ones who mocked me at the old madam's birthday banquet that day. Only Wei Shan, after her arm was injured, stabbed through the beast's hind paw with a sword, and only then did the beast leave. If Wei Shan hadn't known martial arts, she might have died in the beast's jaws. In both past and present lives, her methods of harming Wei Shan were different, yet she always wanted to hurt her. I clutched the secret letter in my hand with an icy expression, then instructed Hongzhu, find a way to kill them. Yes, as Hongzhu acknowledged and was about to withdraw, I frowned and called her back. Forget it. Now is not the time yet. A few days ago, the Duke's mansion carriage passed through the main street. The wind blew up the carriage curtain. Inside sat Pei Jian and Chen Yu, along with several disheveled courtesans. These past 2 days, Rumors have been spreading everywhere that Pagion was dallying with a courtesan in the streets, which is why I wanted to break off the engagement with him. It wasn't because of my own fault that my reputation, which had previously sunk to rock bottom, was gradually being cleared. Chenyu has done so much for me, killing her companion at this time would truly be wrong. I said again. Let's leave it for another day. On the day summer began, an imperial edict arrived at the manor. Bandits had emerged in Linzhou in the northwest, and my elder brother was ordered to go suppress them. This also happened in my previous life. The one who recommended my elder brother to lead troops there to the emperor was Duke Yan. At that time, I was already betrothed to Pagion, and after noble families marry, both houses must support each other to prosper long-term. Therefore, his father often promoted my elder brother in the court. Later, my elder brother achieved a great victory in suppressing the bandits, and upon returning, he received an official position as vice commander of the Imperial Guard. In this reborn life, the one who made the recommendation was changed to Wei Shan's father. I just don't know if he'll still have such good fortune this time. On the day my elder brother set off, Wei Shan also came riding on horseback. Just like in the previous life, she said she was worried about my elder brother being alone and wanted to go along to take care of him. She and my elder brother had already discussed marriage, so no one said anything about her going along. It is just that my elder brother's face was stretched long, looking at Wei Xian as if her nose wasn't a nose, and her eyes weren't eyes. I recalled the painting of a lady in his study, where the ink hadn't yet dried with Chenyu's face shining brilliantly on it. I found it amusing. That smile happened to be seen by him, and the moment he opened his mouth, it was a scolding. "What are you laughing at? Think I won't come back? Let me tell you, put away your petty schemes and stay honestly at home. Don't run around when I return your engagement with young Lord Pei should be put on the agenda." I just smiled without speaking, escorting them all the way to the city gate. Wei Shun waved his hand at me with his back turned before leaving. Only when I could no longer see them did I turn around. Not far away stood Pagion, whom I hadn't seen for a long time, looking at me with a complicated expression in his eyes. He looked somewhat different from when I last saw him. Seeing me look at him, he painfully rubbed his forehead, as if resisting something. As I passed by, he said, "Don't worry, your brother will return safely." I gave a bow. "Thank you, young Duke. Must you be so distant?" He was somewhat exasperated, reaching out to grab me again. "Ajen, I don't understand. Don't understand why, after going out once, your attitude toward me completely changed. Where did I go wrong? Won't you tell me?" I looked at him almost in astonishment. Chenyu was by his side, yet he still had the leisure to ask me these things. I stepped back 2 paces to avoid his hand, smiling gently at him. How could the young duke be wrong? The one who was wrong was Xie Huaizhen from the past life, who was blinded by love and couldn't save herself. He froze with his hand in midair. His lips moved, and finally said, "Ajen, our engagement will continue. You know, I want you, so you can only be with me. Neither you nor your brother have the right to refuse." As if he had struggled for a long time, he continued. "As for Chenyu, she has a pitiful background and no one to rely on. Rest assured, after you marry in, I'll elevate her to be a concubine to serve the both of us." Chenyu a concubine? In my past life, he watched Zhao Shan dig out our child with his own eyes, just so she could be his wife. What about his love? What about his undying love? I only felt as if I had seen a ghost, threw all the etiquette I had learned to the back of my mind, lifted my skirt and ran. It rained again at night, water droplets falling intermittently from the eaves, hitting the corridor edge, especially soothing for sleep. I had a dream. In the dream, the surroundings were desolate, the windows and doors were covered in dust, and even the bed I was lying on was damp. It was raining outside, too. The capital seemed to have especially frequent rain. The air seemed to be permeated with a moldy smell. Peijian stood before me, covering his nose and mouth, looking down at me condescendingly, the disgust in his eyes almost overflowing. Xia Huaizhen, you brought this upon yourself. I just wanted to marry Chen Yu as my wife, but you just had to oppose me. I remembered. This was the scene right after I was caught running out of the abandoned courtyard. Peijian broke my legs and wouldn't let a doctor see me, nor would he let anyone attend to me. I couldn't get out of bed. The clothes and skirt beneath me were covered in yellow filth, and I desperately turned my head in despair to keep him from seeing. But it was useless. My dignity was thrown on the ground and crushed bit by bit, yet he was still talking. Xi Huaizhen, Chen Yu was kind enough to spare your life, yet you are so ungrateful that you still wanted to run outside and ruin her reputation. Just stay here and fend for yourself. The scene shifted, and I saw Hongzhu anxiously crouching in front of me. Miss, how did you get hurt this badly? You are the daughter of the nation. Guarding General. How dare they treat you like this? I hazily opened my eyes and saw Hongzhu lifting me up, her hands trembling uncontrollably. I'll take you back to the General's manor first. Where is Zhao Xian? Is he dead to let you get hurt like this? Don't be scared, miss. Don't be scared. I'll take you. Before she could finish, a gray-furred wolf suddenly lunged out and bit down on Hongzhu's shoulder. Hongzhu cried out in pain and had no choice but to put me down first to fight the wolf. However, as the number of wolves increased, so did the wounds on Hongzhu's body. When she collapsed in front of me, clutching her neck that was gushing blood, all I felt was hatred. Hatred that soared to the heavens. A clap of thunder boomed, and I jolted upright in bed, my nightclothes almost completely soaked through. I gasped heavily several times before breaking free from the nightmare of my past life. Summer had arrived, and the weather grew more stifling with each passing day. Just as I was about to call someone in to help me change, I turned and saw a dark figure standing by my bedside. My gaze sharpened, and just as I was about to reach for the dagger under my pillow, that figure slowly knelt before the bed and wrapped their arms around my waist. Sister. Chen Yu's voice was hoarse, yet her arms held me very tightly. My body stiffened, and only after a long while did I place my hand on her head. She still gently nuzzled against my palm, asking, Jie was calling my name just now. Did you dream of me? Did you miss me? Forcibly suppressing the killing intent in my heart. My voice was also somewhat hoarse. I dreamed of the scene when I first met you. Chen Yu tilted her face up, her hand caressing my wrist, where there was a faint bite mark scar. I bit Jie at our first meeting. It must have hurt a lot back then. It didn't hurt. Not as painful as having my belly cut open and my child gouged out. Chen Yu took off her outer robe and climbed into bed, clinging to me as she nestled into my arms, her voice muffled. I will never let Jie be hurt again. Since that time we met when seeing off my elder brother outside the city, Peijian had changed somewhat. He would always come stand outside the General's manor at night, staring blankly at that pear tree that grew from inside extending outward. That was the one he used to climb when he often came to find me. During those years when we knew each other in our youth, who knows how many nights he slept in that tree. But whenever Chen Yu came, he would go from staring blankly at the tree to angrily flinging his sleeves and leaving. Chen Yu's gaze met mine through the crack in the door. So I smiled gently at her. In my past life, she also took Peijian away from my side time and time again like this. In this life, I thank her. Peijian hadn't attended court for many days now. Several tasks the crown prince had assigned him still showed no progress, and he was already very displeased with him. Even Duke Yan, frustrated at his failure to live up to expectations, had him beaten with paddles several times. That evening, 2 letters were delivered to my desk. Sister, he is beaten raw and can't even get off the bed anymore. Are you happy now? Jen, wait for me a little longer. I'll come to propose as soon as possible. We'll be together. Chen Yu's handwriting had improved considerably, elegant and graceful. She had practiced by imitating my old calligraphy copybooks. Pagion's handwriting, on the other hand, was wild and chaotic, as if written in desperate haste. I didn't have time to deal with him, though. During this period, I frequently traveled between the general's residence and Huguo Temple outside the city to pray for my brother and the soldiers. To show my sincerity, I even withdrew most of the silver from the Shia family shops to establish the Shia clan charity hall, specifically to shelter the elderly and abandoned children. After the charity hall was completed, I spent most of my time there. The next time I heard news about Pagion, something had happened at Duke Yan's residence. I heard their household had lost a family heirloom, and when Pagion chased the thief outside the city, he was attacked by a wild beast. Not only did he fail to recover the item, but one of his arms was torn to shreds by that beast. Blood had dyed half his clothes red, and by the time he was carried back, he had already fallen into a deep coma. The Duchess, my mother-in-law from my previous life, her screams and cries could still reach my ears even across several houses. I knelt on the prayer cushion, eyes fixed straight on the gold-leafed bodhisattva. Then I bowed deeply. "Thank you, Bodhisattva, for your blessing." As I rose, a servant boy stumbled in. His gaze paused when it fell on the Bodhisattva. Then he said urgently, "Miss, the general has returned." When I stumbled back from Huguo Temple outside the city and rushed into the general's residence, the imperial physicians were already consulting in the inner courtyard. Accompanying them was the head eunuch from His Majesty's side. My brother was covered in blood, lying on the bed like a dead man. The vice-general who had followed my brother came forward, crying as he recounted the situation to me. Those mountain bandits were well trained with excellent weapons. The intelligence from the local prefecture was wrong. Although we've driven the bandits out of Linzhou, the general is severely wounded, and Miss Wei has died. My body swayed, and tears burst from my eyes. The chief imperial physician shook his head after the examination. General Xia has injuries to all his internal organs, a penetrating wound to the lower abdomen, and his left leg was snapped off by a hunter's trap. Although the military doctors treated him on the way back, the infection has spread too far, I am afraid. No, it can't be. Chief physician, please save my brother. Our family has been loyal to the crown and country, and only my brother and I are left. I collapsed to my knees on the ground, wailing in grief, kowtowing to the chief physician. Before long, my forehead was red and swollen. The head eunuch beside His Majesty helped me up with pity. "Miss Shi, please do take care of yourself. His Majesty is keeping the general's manor in his thoughts." I was overwhelmed with grief, shakily rising with his support. The moment I stood straight, my body swayed, and I fainted. Before my consciousness faded, I heard several startled cries. When I opened my eyes again, it was already dark outside. The candlelight inside was dim and yellow, with only one lamp lit by the bedside. I slowly got out of bed, picked up the lamp, and walked outside. When I arrived at my brother's courtyard, the maidservant was startled to see me and hurriedly curtsied. "Miss," well, at this moment, I had my long hair loose and was only wearing a white undergarment. Seeing me at night must have been quite frightening. I shed tears. "I am here to take care of my brother. You all leave for now." The maidservant didn't dare delay and immediately called for the others in the courtyard to leave. I wiped away my tears and slowly pushed open the door. My brother still hadn't woken up. Oh, he wasn't dead either. Injured like this, whether to save him or not didn't really matter anymore. The court physician had given him medicine and force, fed him some ginseng soup. After a few instructions, he only said, "Whether General Xia wakes up depends on tonight," before returning to the palace to report to His Majesty. Placing the lamp by the bedside, I straightened my clothes and sat down. Slowly speaking, "Brother, tell me, how did we end up like this? You used to take me to see the lantern festivals, teach me to write. When the tutor at the manor tried to teach me the rules for women and instructions for women in my childhood, you would grab the tutor and toss him out. This caused such a fuss for so long that father and mother couldn't hire any tutors, and could only have us study together with Jian at his family's school. I sighed with nostalgia. To keep mother from scolding me, you would drag me out of bed before dawn every day to teach me martial arts. Later on, I made fewer and fewer mistakes. My martial arts got better and better, yet elder brother became the one who was punished more often. You also became more and more silent, and it seems from then on, you began distancing yourself from me. Do you remember that plate of pastries? A plate of butterfly crisps you brought for me to eat? After eating them, I had a fever for 3 days. When I woke up, my martial arts were completely ruined. Even my constitution had been changed. I could never practice martial arts again. You later investigated and concluded that it was because I had been willful and fined a servant boy his wages. That servant boy had no money to treat his mother's illness, causing her death. He poisoned me to avenge his mother. But I clearly didn't. I tore off my dignified facade, my tone filled with resentment. After a long while, I finally calmed down again and said indifferently, "Forget it. I don't care about any of this." After all, before mother passed, she was still reminding me to support each other with you and to forget this matter. I somewhat wanted to laugh, and indeed I did laugh. She told me to forget, and I obeyed. So I forgot that as a child I too wanted to charge into battle alongside my parents, forgot that I had once mastered excellent martial arts, and forced myself to become the most well-mannered and proper noble lady in the capital. But elder brother, where exactly did I offend you to make you hate me so? You are a woman, born to sacrifice and give for the men of the family. Elder brother had woken up at some point, glaring at me with hateful eyes. Even on the verge of death, he still looked down on me from above as he berated me. It is because you didn't know your place, daring to surpass men as a mere woman. You deserve to die. I remember now. I remember everything. It was you who harmed me. It was Wei Lin who harmed me. You two bitches. You are clearly in league with those bandits. He coughed up 2 mouthfuls of blood in agitation, opening his mouth to shout, "Someone drag Xia Huaijian out and beat her to death. Then report that Wei Min colluded with mountain bandits. I want them dead. I want them dead." Seeing him like this, I instantly understood, a strange smile curling at the corner of my lips. You also experienced rebirth, didn't you? When was it? When you were gravely wounded, or just now? He didn't answer me, desperately trying to get up and call for someone. Before long, the bandages that had been wrapped properly were once again soaked red with blood. My hand gently moved to his wound, then pressed down hard. My fingertips were instantly soaked by the gushing blood. Veins bulged on elder brother's forehead, his screams coming out as nothing but sounds. When he looked at me again, there was already thick terror in the depths of his eyes. "Forget it. I am not curious anymore either. Since you've experienced rebirth, there are some things you should understand now. In your past life, you looked down on me, yet you got promoted because of my marriage to Jian. You looked down on Wei Min, yet you were valued upon returning to the capital for eliminating the mountain bandits using her strategies. Just because we are women, you wanted to suck us dry to the bone. You really deserve to die. This is how the world works. You? Think if I die, can you, an unmarried woman, hold on to the general's manor? Jian doesn't love you. He will break off the engagement and marry Chen Yu. Wei Min already carries the reputation of being a husband, killer before even marrying. The world's spit alone could drown you. You will go to hell with me." Blood gushed from the corner of his mouth. He couldn't even speak anymore, only glaring with his eyes, wishing he could skin me alive and pull out my tendons. I leisurely withdrew my hand. I should thank brother for bravely killing the bandits and bringing me wealth and status. As for Wei Min, she is already dead. There will be no more Wei Min in this world. His Majesty will commend her for dying for the people. The Wei family will open the ancestral hall, and the family genealogy will forever record her achievements. Before leaving, I sniffed the blood on my hand. As expected, even the blood of the wicked smells particularly foul. The moment I stepped out of the room, I saw Hongju. She didn't know I had already lived another life through rebirth, only knew that my actions had been vastly different from before after my trip to Nan Commandery. She must have also heard the conversation I had with my brother inside just now. Just as I opened my mouth to say something, Hongju suddenly knelt before me. The usually cold woman's eyes were slightly red. This subordinate doesn't know what Miss has been through, but Miss, just boldly do whatever you want to do. Hongju will follow you to the death. Silly Hongju, you've already followed me to the death once. I helped her up with a light smile. All right. Returning to my courtyard, Hongju instantly sensed something was wrong and rushed into the room, pulling someone out from the darkness. The two of them started fighting just like that, while I waited in the courtyard holding a lamp. Only when an uncertain Chen Yu rang out did I go inside. Chen Yu was injured, her small face deathly pale. Although she wore clean clothes, there was a heavy smell of blood on her. Upon seeing me, she tried to rush over and hug me. Sister! Hongju drew her blade to block her, and I also took 2 steps back. Sister! She took 2 more steps forward, her thin, slender neck cut by Hongju's blade, leaving a shallow trail of blood, looking at me with only grievance. Sister, I crippled Pei Jian. You don't have to marry him anymore. But you didn't kill him, I spoke coldly. Having never seen my cold expression, Chen Yu was somewhat stunned and said anxiously, I'll kill him, sister, don't be angry. This time he was lucky that someone came and saved him. Next time I'll definitely kill him. I just heard that sister's brother was seriously injured, and was worried sister would be sad. Sister, you've been crying. She looked at me earnestly, but no longer dared to step forward. I smiled. So that is how it is. It is fine. Life and death are fated. I am not sad. Sister just needs Pijian dead. Seeing me smile, her eyes lit up. I'll definitely kill him as soon as possible. Good, we've met today as intended. I am tired, you should leave first. Chen Yu's smile froze at the corner of her lips. But she still said, all right. Then sister should rest first. I'll definitely fulfill sister's wish as soon as possible. After she left, Hongju looked at the crimson blood on the blade. She had, after all, watched Chen Yu grow up with her own eyes, and ultimately couldn't bear it. Miss, now that her assassination attempt on Pei Jian has been discovered, and she is wounded and knows no one in the capital, don't think too much. We still have a show to put on tomorrow and need to conserve our energy. Go rest first. A gentle smile still curved at the corner of my lips. Brother didn't make it through that night. On the day of the funeral, His Majesty came in person and rambled on for a long time before Father's memorial tablet. He spoke of how they met in their youth. He was an unfavored prince, and Father was the legitimate son of the general's manor. Though there were countless princes more powerful than him, Father firmly chose him and protected him all the way to that supreme position. His Majesty shed tears in sorrow, and everyone said he was deeply loyal and righteous. I covered my mockingly upturned lips with a handkerchief. This was nothing but crocodile tears after discarding the bow once the birds were gone. Otherwise, why would the once thriving Zhongguo general's manor end up with withered descendants and military power slipping into others' hands? After his grief, he issued a decree before leaving. He conferred upon me the title of Amping Junju, granted me residence in the general's manor, and decreed the plaque of Zhongguo general's manor shall not be removed. When I marry in the future, the palace will prepare my dowry with the rites befitting a princess and send me off. As soon as His Majesty left, the guests who came to pay their respects began whispering among themselves. Granted the title of Junju, yet no fief. What kind of sense does that make? Anyone with eyes could see that the last male heir of the Xia family line was gone. The Xia family, this noble house standing for 100 years, from this day forward, had completely fallen. But what I wanted, I had already obtained. As for whether the Xie family had truly fallen, who knows? After His Majesty left, I fainted from crying again. I really didn't want to keep vigil for such a heartless bastard. Besides, with so many matters at GC Hospital, I hadn't slept well for days. I was woken by a maidservant the next time I awoke. It was already dark outside, and the sound of the Imperial Guard's curfew clappers echoed from the street. During this time, I had dismissed quite a few servants under the pretense of cutting household expenses to pray for the soldiers. Those who remained now had all been thoroughly investigated for 3 generations. The maidservant brought me my clothes. "Miss, the young Duke has come. He is outside the manor." I spread my arms to change clothes. What is he here for? It seems he is here to apologize. He has been kneeling for an hour already. The maid said so. Even though I knew the general situation, the moment the gate opened, I was still shocked. Peijian's face was pale as a ghost, one sleeve empty and fluttering in the wind, yet he knelt there with his body straight, motionless. The instant I met those bottomless yet pain-filled eyes, I clenched my hands inside my sleeves. What kind of eyes were those? Having been husband and wife for years in our past life, I naturally recognized the solemnity and killing intent that had settled after years of being steeped in the battlefield. Definitely not what the current Peijian should have, and if I could recognize him, so could he recognize me. "Ah, Jen." Seeing me come out, Peijian's eyes lit up, and he shuffled forward on his knees a few steps, the wound on his arm immediately seeping blood from the movement. "Brother Yan," I cried out in alarm and immediately threw myself at him, burying my face in his chest and sobbing. "Brother Yan, my brother is dead!" I cried hard, my tears soaking his chest in an instant. The words Peijian originally wanted to say were held back, his gaze complicated. After hesitating for a moment, he wrapped his arm around me, his voice hoarse. "It is okay. It is okay, you still have me." We embraced for a long time in tacit understanding, silent, without saying a word, then waved goodbye. I watched Peijian's tall figure gradually hunch over, and he even stumbled after walking a short distance. Right after, several agile figures resembling dogs or wolves chased after him. Hongzhu supported me. "Princess, let's go back. She will take care of everything. It is all over now." "Is it over?" "No, not yet. It is not over until I see the outcome with my own eyes." Follow them. The capital was under curfew, the empty streets silent, except for the occasional sounds of family joy leaking from the lit households nearby. The roadside lanterns couldn't illuminate the dark alleyways, just like the nights in the abandoned courtyard were always terrifyingly pitch black, with only me clinging to life alone in the corner. But now everything was different. I carried a lantern, the evening wind blowing my white mourning clothes. Not far away lay 2 figures seemingly soaked in blood. "They only stirred when they heard my footsteps, sister." "Ah, Jen." 2 equally longing gazes fixed on me. I paused for a moment, then stepped toward Peijian. "Sister," Chenyu called out again. Her severe injuries left her unable to move, only able to gaze at me with eyes brimming with tears. A flash of pleasant surprise crossed Peijian's eyes. Seeing me crouch down, his pale lips moved. "I am sorry, Jen, I am sorry. I hurt you like that in my previous life. I didn't mean to, I don't know why either. Whenever I saw Chenyu, I just couldn't help it." He whimpered in agony, as if possessed by madness, bloodshot veins gradually appearing in his eyes, eyeballs bulging, obsessively repeating over and over. "How could I have treated you like that? Why did I treat you like that? His words were cut off by the dagger I plunged into his chest. "Brother Yan, you need to rest." My voice was very soft, but as the blood drained away, he really quieted down, lying back and closing his eyes, murmuring, "Yes, I need to rest. A Jen is still waiting for me to propose. I need to rest well." He closed his eyes peacefully. I hummed a familiar lullaby. The boy came riding his bamboo horse, circling the bed, playing with green plums. Living together in Changan Lane, two little ones without suspicion. At 14, I became your wife, my bashful face still unopened. On the flower festival when I was 8, I rode out alone to find my parents because I missed them too much. But after leaving the city, I couldn't find my way home. That was the first time I met you, a wild and unruly young man, yet you panicked when faced with me crying my eyes out and sang lullabies to me all night. You asked which family's little sister I was and offered to take me home, saying you'd never seen a girl like me, and if you could marry me, you'd surely make me the freest girl in the world. Later, when Zhao Sheng cut the baby from my belly, Pei Jian stood not far away, watching coldly, ignoring my pleas and cries. Before I died, what echoed in my ears was his helpless sigh. Wei Zhen, I am your sky. Just die in peace. I no longer love you. Living is only suffering for you, so why not die? Pei Jian said he was my sky, that if he told me to die, I couldn't live. Elder brother also said he was my sky, that whoever he told me to marry, I would marry. The skies pressing down on me piled layer upon layer, leaving me no hope in sight. So suffocating, just as suffocating as how you betrayed me because you were controlled by your settings. But it is okay. I can't bear to let you suffer the same pain I've endured, so I've come to save you. I pressed the dagger down hard, piercing straight through Pei Jian's heart. Blood gushed from the corners of his mouth in great gulps. He reached out, wanting to touch my face, but in the end pulled back. I am sorry. After uttering these 3 words, Pei Jian breathed his last breath in this world. Brother Yan, sleep now. I closed his wide-open eyes, and the final tears shed for our childhood sweetheart's bond traced down my cheeks. I pulled out the dagger, stood up, and walked toward Chenyu. Her eyes were wet, the smile at the corners of her lips barely holding on. She asked me with a choked voice, "Sister, he is dead. Are you happy?" I crouched down and held the dagger suspended above her head. Happy, then that is good. She gently closed her eyes. Pei Jian's corpse was discovered the next morning by an auntie pushing her wanton cart out to do business. Within an hour, the entire city of Kyoto was placed under lockdown. Entry was permitted through the city gates, but no one was allowed to leave. Duke Yan, with reddened eyes, swore to hunt down the murderer and have them cut into 1,000 pieces. His Highness the Crown Prince personally traveled back and forth between the capital magistrate and the Eastern Palace to inquire about the case of his cousin's murder. The entire city's people were terrified and uneasy. Only a dilapidated small courtyard in the southwest of the capital remained peaceful and serene. This was the home Chenyu found for herself. I surveyed the surroundings: weathered grass, rotting wood, a broken-down house, an abandoned couch, far worse than the pampered treatment she had in her previous life. She lay on the couch and awkwardly lifted the bedding, placing her own clothes on top before letting me sit. Now that what I needed her to do was done, I no longer needed to pretend, and simply said, "You've eliminated a great threat for me. I can grant you one request." Her eyes dimmed, then brightened, and in the end she only said, "I just want to stay by your side, sister." The same words. A few months ago, she was still innocent like a child, but now her brows and eyes were tinged with deep sorrow. I didn't say yes, nor did I say no. From that day on, I accompanied her every day again, just like when I first brought her into the capital. One evening, I suddenly grew curious about how she felt living among the beasts in the forest before. She said, it was very free. There was no complexity of human nature, no scheming and deception of the capital. We just killed in the most straightforward way. If you wanted something, you just killed the other and took it. All I thought about every day was what I could catch and what I could eat. She changed the subject. But being human is very nice, because I got to know you, sister, and I can help you. Chenyu's injuries had healed a lot these past 2 days. and she said she wanted to take me to experience what her life was like before. Sister, try letting go of your restraints. I'll take you out to play. What Chenyu meant by playing was taking me through the mountain forest like a wild person, climbing trees to pick fruits, wading into the river to catch fish. Absolutely not. How could the Junju eat such crude things? Hongju frowned and pushed away what Chenyu had brought over, then turned to take out an exquisite food box from the carriage. While Hongju went to prepare, Chenyu playfully blinked, raised her head and called out. And when the massive gray wolf stopped before us, she pulled me onto its back in one swift motion. The wind howled past, the entire mountain forest echoing with Chenyu's cheerful laughter and Hongju's exasperated shouts. I sat on the wolf's back in a momentary daze. How long had it been since I felt this carefree? It seemed to be since my martial arts were completely ruined, and I resolved to become a proper noble lady. Mother said, "Since you can no longer practice martial arts, then learn to manage accounts and brew tea properly. Jenner mother once hoped you could forge your own path through martial arts. But now things are set in stone. You must not hold a grudge against your brother. In the future, your father and I will arrange a good marriage for you. Become a qualified mistress of a noble house. As long as your father and I live, you will still have a peaceful and prosperous life." But mother, being the mistress of a noble house, didn't bring me peace and prosperity. It didn't even let me survive. The consequence of playing wildly for a day was that my current body was so exhausted, I didn't even know how I made it back. I only remember someone crying by my ear, someone wiping my face and body for me, she said. That day in the heavy rain, you were talking in your sleep, your words filled with murderous intent toward me. I didn't dare ask why you hated me, and could only ask with a face full of hope whether you missed me. Sister, if I die, could you also wear mourning clothes to see me off, just like you did for Peijian? Several days passed by quickly. When the servant boy from the manor came to find me, I was holding Chenyu's hand, teaching her to paint. "Princess, there are guests at the manor." The smile on Chenyu's face froze. I set down the brush in my hand and walked out. "Sister, will you come back?" Chenyu called out to me urgently. "I will." I knew what she wanted to hear, and I wasn't stingy about saying it to her. "Okay, then I'll wait here for you, sister." I didn't respond again and strode out. On the way back to the manor, I took a detour to the Wei residence. When I saw the white mourning banners still hanging there, not yet taken down, I let out a cold laugh and lowered the carriage curtain. Back at the manor, the so-called guest was already waiting in the main hall. Upon seeing me, he flicked his sleeves and put on the airs of an elder. "Huizhen, where did all the etiquette you learned since childhood go? Your brother has no heir, and someone needs to uphold the prestige of this great general's manor. I've decided you shall select a child from the collateral branches back home to be adopted under your brother's name, so there'll be someone to carry on your family line in the future." This was exactly what Wei Shan had been worried about before. Me family has no male heirs, so those mediocre collateral relatives back home, who used to depend on my father and brothers for support, should be coming to the capital to tear flesh from me now. Does Third Grand Uncle not know that His Majesty has already conferred upon me the title of Junju? With an official rank, if you wish to see me, you must bow first. The old man's clouded eyes shot out a sharp gleam. Without your father and brothers fighting on the battlefield, where would your title of Junju come from? Are you really going to let them have no descendants to offer sacrifices in the future? You unfilial and unbrotherly wretch. A woman accused of being unfilial and unbrotherly could face confinement in the family temple for life at best, or be beaten to death at worst. If I were still the proper and graceful lady I used to be, perhaps I would have yielded to such coercion. But now I simply skimmed the foam from the tea bowl with the lid, quietly listening to him speak. As a woman without virtue or morals, just as Hongju rushed anxiously into the main hall, I viciously drove the hairpin into that neck that kept bobbing with his agitated speech. Blood splattered all over my body and face, and Hongju's words caught in her throat. Only after regaining her senses did she say, Junju, the small courtyard where Chenyu lives has caught fire. There are 7 wolf carcasses laid out in the courtyard. They're from the wolf pack she brought with her to the capital. She is nowhere to be found. How many bandit dens are there on the Route 3rd Grand? Uncle took to the capital, I asked calmly. From Qizhou to the capital, passing through 7 provinces. With unrest everywhere now, there are 3 large bandit dens and countless small ones. Then send off all those who came with 3rd Great, Uncle peacefully. And from now on, whenever anyone from Qizhou comes to our door, use the same method, kill them until they no longer dare to come. The so-called branch family, the so-called relatives sharing the same blood, are nothing but parasites sucking blood from my grandfather and father. Just because they bear the Z surname doesn't make them worthy of my mercy. Yes, then Chenyu. She dared to kill the Duke of Yan's only son. Wasn't her fate sealed from the very beginning? I said with a beaming smile. From the moment Chenyu willingly came to the capital, she had already set foot on this path to death. I merely provided some guidance and blurred the hierarchy of power in the human world, as well as the severity of provoking those in power. I am not some female protagonist in a storybook with a golden finger. Just a woman trapped in the inner quarters with no power, no connections, someone brother Peijian and the others could crush with a flick of their wrist. Since I want revenge, yet also want to survive safely, I can only advance step by step, without making a single misstep. Could the Duke of Yan really not find out who brought Chenyu to the capital? He could. Unfortunately, though the death of the last male heir of the Xia family left our house teetering on the brink, it also gave me a talisman for survival. All the glorious merits accumulated from every memorial tablet in the Xia family ancestral hall. With my brother's death, His Majesty will compensate for everything by bestowing it all upon me, because I am just a woman not worth fearing. This way, he can both demonstrate His Majesty's benevolence and soothe his own conscience. Duke Yan's fury could only fall upon Chenyu. Since my rebirth, no matter how much I suppressed it, my hatred for Chenyu remained just as vivid. I hated her, but I was even more wary of her every-own sweetheart heroine attributes. Therefore, she must die without question. The rainy season had passed. The sun blazed like fire, and every day now was fine weather. If only I hadn't had that dream. In the dream, a gaunt and withered woman was held in the arms of a fat-headed, big-eared man. Her face no longer bore the radiant charm from when she first arrived in the capital. I had seen that man before. He was His Majesty's blood brother, the most debauched old prince in the capital. Chenyu, this prince has finally obtained you. He sighed as he buried his face in Chenyu's neck, and the next instant, the woman's numb eyes suddenly burst with a fierce gleam. Before the old prince could react, the woman had already bitten through his throat. She laughed madly at the top of her lungs, left behind the words, "Men's hearts are truly the filthiest things in this world," before smashing her head against the wall, leaving behind a vivid flower of blood. I sat up from the bed, gasping for breath, my heart beating unusually fast. That was Chenyu, the Chenyu from my previous life. I didn't know why she had met such an end in her previous life, or where all those noble young men who had admired and cherished her had gone. But when men love women while also being tied to interests and power, they will mostly abandon the women. Chenyu was the one who was abandoned. Then after men achieve success and fame, they recall those they loved but couldn't have, and search everywhere for their shadows. Take my brother from my past life, for example. Didn't his rear courtyard later have many women who resembled Chenyu? But Chenyu was a wolf, proud and aloof, tolerating no humiliation. So hanging herself was her destined ending to preserve her dignity in her past life. I suddenly felt a pang of bitterness, a fate full of hardships, losing her father in childhood, growing up with difficulty. After she came to understand human nature, all that surrounded her was false affection and exploitation. Whether in her past life or this one, it was all the same. Since my rebirth, I've always had firm goals and shouldn't have been emotionally disturbed by Chenyu. Yet at this moment, an indescribable ache surged in my chest. As a fellow woman, I hated her, yet seeing her fate still stirred a sense of grieving for one's own kind. People often say men are the sky and women are the earth, using this deeply ingrained idea to imprison women in the rear courtyard. When they were studying, we were learning needlework. When they were practicing martial arts, we were learning the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. When they were making allies outside for the family's cause, we were arranging marriages in the inner quarters to secure the family's future. So-called advancing hand in hand was nothing but a family sacrificing a woman and crawling forward on her body with great difficulty. But why should that be? Why should that be? Hongju pushed the door open and entered. Junju, are you going to the GC courtyard today? In recent days, the Shi family's properties from various places had slowly gathered, and I had people build GC courtyards everywhere. The standards were exactly the same as the one in the capital. As a result, my reputation in the capital was now excellent. His Majesty even personally wrote a plaque for me and sent it to GC Orphanage. I snapped back to my senses. Go. As I left, I added, Anren, go out and find Chenyu. Bring her back when you find her. Hongzu rarely showed a smile. Yes, princess. The carriage suddenly stopped while passing through the long street. A gloomy voice came through the curtain. Princess, the debt for my son cannot be settled with the life of a mere wolf girl. I chuckled softly, looking forward to your methods, Duke. The other party snorted coldly and rode off on his horse. That afternoon, His Highness, the Crown Prince, came to GC Orphanage. He strolled around GC Orphanage, a gentle smile on his face, but an undisguised viciousness lurked in the depths of his eyes. Miss Xia is so kind-hearted, giving these elderly and children a place to rely on, truly a model among women. I wish to petition the Emperor to take Miss Xia as my consort. I thought they would have some clever means to deal with me. It is still about a woman's marriage. Now Chenyu's mission to come to the capital is complete. Next, it is my turn. The day arrived when Pei Jian had come to propose in my previous life. It rained that day, but the sky soon cleared. I took out from the dressing case what Chenyu had previously smuggled out of the Duke's residence and given to me. The item that Duke Yan claimed was his lost family heirloom. It was a map, an iron ore map, clearly showing the location of the mine and the mining situation. Privately operating an iron mine is a crime equivalent to treason. This was also the reason why Chenyu had been hunted by Duke Yan all along. 7 years after my death in my previous life, someone used this map to have the Duke of Yan's entire household executed. In this life, he will only meet the same fate. I took the map to the 5th prince's residence. The crown prince was the son of imperial consort Pei, the emperor's most favored. The 5th prince was the son of the empress. Yet, the Duke of Yan's household grew stronger by the day, and imperial consort Pi and the crown prince's positions became ever more secure. Meanwhile, the empress's maternal family had declined, and the 5th prince, despite being the legitimate heir, couldn't compare to the crown prince whether in court or in the emperor's heart. This map was my pledge of allegiance. What does Miss Xie want? The 5th prince Zhao Chengshuan toyed with the map in his slender fingers, letting out a soft chuckle. The position of the 5th prince's consort. I looked up and flashed him a smile. Zhao Chengshuan was in an awkward position. He'd probably be the first one the crown prince would eliminate after ascending the throne. So for now, he had no principal consort, only a few secondary consorts. Since I had to marry someone anyway, I'd rather be a prince's principal consort than the crown prince's secondary consort. The 5th prince was stunned, then said, "All right." A month later at the emperor's birthday celebration, the iron mine map was presented to His Majesty by the Minister of Works in front of all the officials at the banquet. His Majesty flew into a rage, flipping the table and smashing cups. When imperial consort Pei tried to soothe him, she was slapped across the face in public. The crown prince was so terrified he dropped to his knees, crying out that he had nothing to do with it. The Duke of Yan's face went pale as he realized he'd been abandoned. He simply confessed to the crime, protecting the crown prince. The entire duke's household was thrown into prison. His Majesty ordered the Court of Judicial Review to investigate overnight. The witnesses who escorted this map and the miners were gradually sent into the capital by the fifth prince's people. It took a full 3 months to completely close this case. During this period, my mother-in-law from my previous life fell gravely ill from losing her son and the house raid, and passed away in prison. When the investigation concluded, the crown prince and consort Pei were still extricated, only punished with house arrest. The Duke of Yan's household was condemned to execution of 3 clans. All men were beheaded, and women were sentenced as criminal slaves. On the day Duke of Yan was executed, I went to see him. The old duke's eyes were red with hatred when he saw me. "My son was once betrothed to you. We never wronged you. Why on earth did you?" "Old Duke," you said, a wolf. "Girl couldn't settle the score for Yan's life. What a coincidence. I feel the same as you. I also think the death of one Yan isn't enough to quell my fury. So, I am sending you down to keep him company." Because this matter failed to bring down the crown prince and consort P, Zhao Chengxuan threw a huge fit in his study. All the advisors were driven outside the door until I pushed it open. A pair of hands caught me off guard and yanked me inside, hot lips and tongue pressing against mine. I suppressed the impatience between my brows and let him do as he pleased, until he released me and pulled me into his embrace. He is so biased. When I was young, I was merely tricked into touching that blank imperial edict on the desk, and he rebuked me for having wolfish ambitions. Unfit to be a son, he cut off my path to advancement, and to this day, no one dares to marry their daughter to me as a proper consort. What about him? Although the iron mine was sealed and Duke Yan was executed, the iron mined before still hasn't been found. Yet he raised it high and let it down gently. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. A Zhao Chengxuan's phoenix eyes were completely red, that handsome face twisted with hatred. I gently stroked his face. "It is fine, that batch of iron will send him to hell. The affairs of Marquis Yongning's household have been spreading like wildfire recently. Does your highness know?" Zhao Chengxuan calmed down. "The matter of the Marchioness beating a concubine to death and being divorced. Why bring this up so suddenly? A few days ago, Marquis Yongning submitted a memorial requesting that his eldest illegitimate son inherit the title, and the Marchioness immediately beat that illegitimate son's birth mother to death. On the spot even, that illegitimate son had both his legs crippled. This matter caused an uproar throughout the capital. Some say the Marchioness is jealous by nature with a venomous heart. Who inherits the title should be decided by the Marquis himself. Yet she beat that concubine to death and crippled that illegitimate son. Others say Marquis Yongning favoring his concubine over his wife was wrong to begin with. I only found it laughable. Marquis Yongning's career went so smoothly, only because of his marriage ties with his wife's family. Now that he has gained power, he burns bridges after crossing the river. That Marchioness is a daughter of the Su clan of Qianling, a tigress from a military family. How could she easily let him push her around? This year's literary gathering seems to have no topic yet. How about using the matter of Marquis Yongning's legitimate second son versus the illegitimate eldest son inheriting the title as the subject? Every year in the capital, there is a literary gathering at the Juxian Tea House, where literati, renowned scholars, and students from all walks of life gather on that day. Students freely discuss poetry and prose, sharing their views on the nation. If one could catch the eye of a great scholar and be taken as a disciple, their official career would surely flourish thereafter. That is why those scholars hold this event in such high regard. That is not hard at all. You want to use this to suppress the Marquis of Yongning and win over the Marchioness? Not entirely. I smiled without explaining. The crown prince lost Duke Yan, and you gained the support of the Qianling Su clan. Would that make you happier? He pinched my cheek, the gloom on his face gradually fading. Happy, my little strategist. The empress requested an imperial marriage decree from His Majesty, due to my brother's recent passing. The wedding had to be completed within half a year. The Imperial Astronomical Bureau calculated an auspicious date 3 months later. Time wasn't plentiful, and it wasn't appropriate to hold a grand ceremony. So preparations began in earnest right after the decree was issued. I also went on the day of the literary gathering, sitting in the tea house across the street. With me was the Marchioness of Yongning. Oh no, since they've already divorced? I should call her Madame Su. She sneered while stroking her teacup. The Su clan doesn't take sides. I smiled and poured tea for her. Not taking sides. I just want to give Madame a chance for herself. Both being military families, the Su clan is better off than my Shi clan. Over these years, they've shown deference to the royal family, and at least there are still men in their household. This Lady Su once disguised herself as a man and went to the battlefield, but the family head back then, her father, had long anticipated the emperor's wariness. He only found her a husband without power or influence among that year's successful examinees. Now, even the husband's family that rose to prominence, thanks to her, has backstabbed her. But she could wield a 60-jin spear, and her original name was Su Juxiao. How could she accept this? An opportunity? She laughed self-mockingly. A cast-off wife, what opportunity could there be? There naturally is one. Give it a shot, Lady Su, win or lose. It won't be any worse than your current utter defeat. Lady Su gave me a long, deep look. That afternoon, the dispute over legitimate and illegitimate sons in the Yongning Marquis manor stirred up countless waves, not to mention official families. Even merchant households and many ordinary families had concubines and illegitimate children. Once this topic emerged, not only scholars but even common folk joined in. Legitimate and illegitimate sons fought for themselves, wives and concubines fought for their children. The next day, Lady Su brought her child, the legitimate son of the Yongning Marquis manor, to the 5th prince's residence. This young man was just 17, and the martial arts he learned from his mother were nothing if not formidable. Zhao Chengxuan accepted him and, as I requested, sent him off to the Imperial Guard camp. With Lady Su's son entrusted to him, the Su clan of Qianling was tacitly understood to stand behind Zhao Chengxuan. That afternoon, Madame Su left the capital. At the city gate, the Marquis of Yongning pestered her for a long while, finally relenting to petition for his legitimate son to inherit the title, begging her not to leave. These past 2 days, his family's affairs had spread like wildfire throughout the city. Every morning, rotten eggs and spoiled vegetable leaves could be seen thrown at the entrance of the Marquis of Yongning's residence. His Majesty punished him with half a year's salary deduction on grounds of improper family conduct, yet said nothing about issuing a decree for the illegitimate son to inherit the title. He panicked. In this capital where noble families gathered, and you could hit a dozen marquises by throwing a brick, he, a Marquis of Yongning, who rose from humble origins through marriage connections, with no foundation, was nothing. Madame Su spat. Who the fuck wants that? If my father hadn't insisted on picking you back then, would I have ever looked at you? A useless pretty boy who can't carry anything on his shoulders or lift anything with his hands. And you have the nerve to keep women outside using my reputation? Pah. The Marquis of Yongning stood frozen in place, watching Madame Su mount her horse and ride away with a crack of her whip. At the pavilion outside the city, I waited with wine prepared. Madame Su dismounted and came over. Hongju poured 2 cups of wine and we drank them down in one gulp. The petty family affairs of the Marquis of Yongning will blow over before long. They won't receive any punishment, she said. The true intention of this topic was never about the Marquis of Yongning, I answered. She froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. So you played him. Good. I'll wait for your news. As she mounted her horse, she said, May we succeed. We will. Chenyu returned the night before my wedding. Red silk hung high in the general's mansion, the residence brightly lit. When she jumped over from the corner of the wall, she startled a passing maidservant. The guards were immediately summoned and made their move. They only stopped when Hongju arrived. When I saw her, in a trance, it felt like I was back to the first time I met her. She was covered in filth, with blood scabs and mud, crouching in the kitchen while holding a wolf that had long since rotted and was infested with maggots. Only, when I approached, did she slowly raise her head to look at me, her eyes devoid of sorrow or joy. "Sister, my wolf mother is dead." I slowly approached and crouched down, gently brushing aside her hair despite the stench of the rotting corpse. "Sister, the wolf mother is dead," she said again. At that moment, from her trembling voice, I sensed boundless grief. Seeing her like this, my throat felt dry and tight. After taking a deep breath to suppress my emotions, I said, "Come, let's get you washed first, treat the wounds on your body, and then get you something to eat." Her emotions were in such a terrible state. Only after I calmed her down did Hongju step forward to take the wolf's corpse. I restrained myself from thinking about how she had survived these days, carrying the wolf's corpse while fleeing from Duke Yan's pursuit. I brought her to a room and ordered someone to bathe her, but she was too guarded. Others couldn't get close to her at all. I had no choice but to do it myself. She sat obediently in the bathtub while I used a cloth to wipe away the bloodstains on her body bit by bit. Her injuries were worse than I had imagined. Several knife wounds crossed her once snow-white back, the longest one stretching from her shoulder and neck to her lower back. Flesh splayed open and long since festered. When I wiped her body, she remained motionless as if she felt no pain, her eyes blank and dazed. Outside, facing the fifth prince and his advisors, I could still keep my composure, but now my hands trembled at her transformation. Perhaps because I had seen her at her most joyful and innocent, and her current state was brought about by my own hand. I had someone summon a physician. Seeing the physician approach, her eyes began to turn red again, baring her teeth with a fierce expression. I could only pull her into my arms. "It is all right, don't be afraid. Let her examine you." Only then did she speak her second words to me since our reunion. "Sister, you hate me. Why do you hate me?" She lay against my chest, her voice carrying aggrieved sobs, until her crying grew louder, becoming heart-wrenching wails as if trying to cry out all her recent suffering. Until her voice grew hoarse from crying, and blood stained the corners of her mouth. She still sought answers. "You brought me out of the deep mountains, taught me to be human. Why do you hate me?" My throat was dry. Why did I hate her? How could I explain talk about my past life, or this one? Besides, by now, my hatred for her had long faded, the past life like a fading painting. In this life, I have more important things to do. So I said, "Chenyu, climb up with me step by step. Climb to a position where no one dares to bully us anymore." She was probably tired too. After crying, she relaxed and her breathing gradually steadied. "In the end," she murmured, "Sister, don't get married." Chenyu accompanied me into the fifth prince's mansion, while Hongzu stayed at the general's mansion to manage the Shai family's properties. As for this veiled maidservant beside me, the fifth prince only gave her a deep look and said nothing. The nanny had taught me the wedding banquet procedures in advance. Everything went smoothly until the bridal chamber. I was not an inexperienced young girl. I had already prepared myself long ago, but when Zhao Chengxuan pressed down on me roughly, I still had tears wetting my temples from the pain. He wanted to exercise his power as a husband and a superior, so his movements were not gentle. I gritted my teeth, staring at the swaying bed curtains from nightfall until dawn, before I couldn't bear it anymore and passed out. From then on, Zhao Chengxuan and I were bound together in honor and disgrace, inseparable. As Madame Su had said, in just 2 months, the dispute over legitimate and illegitimate heirs of the Yongning Marquis had passed, and no one mentioned it anymore. After the Crown Prince's confinement was lifted, most of his spirit had dissipated, and his former pretense of being gentle, virtuous, respectful, and frugal was gone. Between his brows and eyes, there was only deep gloom. His Majesty no longer treated consort Pei as before. It seemed he had remembered the virtues of his first wife, and instead often visited the Empress's palace. The father-son bond between the Crown Prince and His Majesty had ultimately developed a rift due to the iron mine incident. In the following palace banquets, the Crown Prince openly and covertly tripped me up a few times with petty schemes that didn't really hurt, but I easily deflected them all. In mid-October, during the autumn hunt, an accident occurred. A brown bear burst out of the forest and nearly injured His Majesty. At that time, the Crown Prince was standing right beside His Majesty, but when the incident happened, he instinctively fled. It was a young man from the Imperial Guard camp who blocked a claw for His Majesty, buying time to save him. His Majesty was terrified, and after coming to his senses, he promoted the young man on the spot to commander of the Right Imperial Guard, splitting the two guards with Wayman's father. The young man was none other than Madame Sue's son. Although I was far away at the time, still caught the dark glint that flashed through His Majesty's clouded eyes when he looked at the Crown Prince. I turned my head and gave a slight nod to Chenyu, who was veiled behind the imperial tent. She then left as if she had never been there. At this point, whatever little fatherly affection His Majesty had for the Crown Prince as an ordinary father and son completely vanished. In the following half-year, the Crown Prince frequently made mistakes in governmental affairs and was reprimanded, also bungling several assignments in a row. At the same time, the controversy over legitimate versus illegitimate heirs in the capital stirred up again. Only this time, the main subject was no longer the Yongning Marquise's household. It became the Crown Prince and Zhao Chengxuan. What was used for comparison was also the Crown Prince's muddled work over the past half-year versus Zhao Chengxuan's recent progress. Did Jen already have this in mind when she brought up this topic that day? Zhao Chengxuan looked at me with a half-smile. The Crown Prince has sat securely in the Eastern Palace for many years. His influence at court is beyond your Highness's comparison. A ruler exists for the people. Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize it. Since that is the case, let all under heaven pay attention to this contest for the Eastern Palace. Let them choose the monarch they most favor. Zhao Chengxuan smiled, and right in front of his advisors, he pulled me into his arms and kissed me. He pinched my chin, his eyes deep and dark. What a formidable woman. I suppressed my humiliation, the smile on my face growing ever brighter. That night, water was called for 5 times in the room, and I felt as though I had walked through hell. From that day on, Zhao Chengxuan no longer allowed me to sit in when he discussed matters with his advisors. Chanyu looked at the frightening bruises on my body and cried again. "Sister, why does he treat you like this? Shall I kill him?" I stroked her head. "Because when a man finds you stronger than him, the only way he can think of to suppress you is through these matters in bed. Don't kill him yet. Save him for later." After no longer participating in discussions, my days returned to how they were before. Like an ordinary woman, going outside the city to pray for my husband, personally busying myself at the GCUan. I knew this was what Zhao Chengxuan wanted me to do, to be a good head wife, virtuous and proper, able to earn him reputation without threatening his position. Thanks to the Xie family's GCUan establishments in various regions, Zhao Chengxuan's reputation among the common people had long surpassed the Crown Prince's sea. The good deeds done by a woman are always credited to her husband. I watched with a smile as Chenyu killed the last Eastern Palace shadow guard sent by the Crown Prince, then stepped forward to wipe her face with a handkerchief. "Why do you still like biting necks with your mouth? So dirty." Chenyu skillfully put on her veil. "It is not dirty. I'll wash up properly when I get back." On the day of the Lantern Festival, I was diagnosed with pregnancy. Zhao Chengxuan held me and spun me around several times, pecking at my lips. "Jen, we're having a child. I am so happy. Now that I've gained favor before Father Emperor, you won't need to worry about court affairs anymore. How about you just focus on raising our child in peace?" I nodded gently. All right. The next day, he took me into the palace to share the good news. His Majesty was also very pleased. Even his recently ashen and sickly complexion became somewhat rosier. Yes, His Majesty was ill, and even the imperial physicians couldn't diagnose what was wrong. 2 months ago, the Eastern Palace took in a Liangdi, and that Liangdi's grandfather was none other than Imperial Physician Shui, who served in the Imperial Medical Bureau. However, recently, the fifth prince's residence had also taken in quite a few new people, all daughters of officials who had recently joined his faction. He held my waist and scoffed coldly. Back then they couldn't avoid me fast enough, now they're rushing to shove people by my side. Indeed, his momentum was at its peak now. Deposing the crown prince was only a matter of time. As he spoke, Zhao Chengxuan slipped his hand under my skirt. My Ajen is still the best, standing firmly by my side from the very beginning. My eyes darkened slightly as I pushed his hand away with a smile. Your Highness, this concubine's pregnancy is not yet stable. He froze for a moment, then let go of me and got up to leave, leaving behind the pregnancy. Stabilizing medicine that had just been delivered to the table. Chunyu came over and casually took it away, pouring it into the potted plant by the window. She had become composed and reserved now, already able to handle these matters well. Sister, there is a small amount of safflower in it, Chenyu said. 2 women in the West Chamber also got pregnant a couple of days ago. The household physician went quietly and left quietly, without a word getting out. I had indeed made him wary. Happy on the surface, but already taking action in secret, not wanting me to give birth to this child. I rubbed my throbbing temples. Have someone deliver the evidence I've gathered about Consort Pei plotting against His Majesty to the Empress, and send word to His Highness the Crown Prince while you are at it. This night was destined to be anything but peaceful. The Empress had been suppressed by Consort Pei for too long. Once she learned the truth, she immediately erupted. When Zhao Chengxuan hurriedly brought me into the palace, Consort Pei's corpse was still lying on the floor of the hall. His Majesty was coughing up blood profusely, yet still ordered the eunuch to draft an edict. The Crown Prince was deposed, and Zhao Chengxuan was made Crown Prince. The Empress's hands trembled as she held the imperial edict, her face showing no grief for the dying emperor, only the ecstasy of finally making it through. She had been suppressed by Consort Pei for over 20 years. Now she had finally emerged from her suffering. Whatever marital affection they'd had in their humble beginnings had long been exhausted by years of favoritism. But before she could proclaim the edict to the world, the palace had already descended into chaos. Screams and cries of alarm drew closer from afar. The Crown Prince has rebelled. How could he have gathered his men so quickly? Zhao Chengxuan was surprised, then abruptly turned to look at me, disbelief in his eyes. I smiled at him. Your Highness, only if he rebels can you kill him. If the Crown Prince were merely deposed, he would only be confined, still eating and drinking well in a different place. But I wasn't willing, and I think Zhao Chengxuan wasn't either. So I was helping him. After his shock subsided, Zhao Chengxuan took a deep breath, grabbed my wrist and pulled me back toward the inner hall. Escort the Empress and the Princess Consort into the secret passage of the inner hall. The rest of you, defend the main hall to the death. Not a single rebel is to be let in. Zhao Chengxuan's grip on me was incredibly tight. Somewhat startled, I tugged at his sleeve. Your Highness, you should be out there suppressing the rebellion right now, not here. Shut up. After pushing me into the secret passage, Zhao Chengxuan left with his sword in hand, watching his back as he led people to guard the hall entrance. I pressed my lips together. My heart felt conflicted for a moment. The Crown Prince arrived quickly, and with him came Wei Shan's father. The capital's imperial guard totaled 50,000 men, and he had brought most of them. Zhao Chengxuan, you've still lost. So what if you are the legitimate son of the Empress? You've been under my foot since childhood, and that will never change in this lifetime. As if those lowly commoners have any right to discuss matters of legitimacy. He pointed his sword at Zhao Chengxuan, but in the next instant suddenly screamed, because Zhao Chengxuan had dragged out Consort Pei's corpse. Trash. He viciously lifted the corpse and hurled it at the crown prince, then raised his sword and charged up. The palace was brightly lit throughout the night, the sounds of slaughter shaking the heavens. Although Madame Su's son was the right guard of the Imperial Guard, his foundation was unstable after all, and he didn't have many men. When the sky was just beginning to lighten, the ground inside the palace was already caked with a thick layer of dried blood. Zhao Chengxuan had also become a bloody mess, leaning against the palace gate in a sorry state, completely drained of strength. Seeing Wei Qian's father raise his spear with a ferocious expression, about to pierce through Zhao Chengxuan's body, the Empress let out a shrill, anguished scream. I also clutched at my sleeve. Fortunately, the next instant, a spear flew from behind and split open Wei Qian's father's chest. A familiar voice followed. The Su clan of Qianling has entered the palace to quell the rebellion. Those who surrender will be spared. Those who persist in their folly will be executed. Su Juxiao was clad in armor, his voice resounding. Not far away, the one fighting the rebels was none other than Wei Qian in silver armor, and behind her were the mountain bandits who had vanished with her back when she went to suppress the bandits. These mountain bandits were originally retired soldiers from the battlefield, who had turned to banditry only because they weren't properly resettled. In my previous life, it was Wei Qian who had recruited them, placing them under my brother's command. In this life, this force belonged to Wei Qian. I walked out from the secret passage, and from afar she even winked at me. Was this also something you calculated? When was it? When you sent word to the crown prince, or even earlier? The sun rose, the rebel forces retreated step by step, and Zhao Chengxuan threw down his sword and sat down without any regard for his image. His tone carried mockery as he spoke. Princess Consort, you really make me see you in a new light. But what exactly do you want? I didn't reply to him, just crouched down and gently wiped away the blood and grime from his face bit by bit, revealing that face with superior features, yet tinged with sorrow. The deposed crown prince had a sword run through his chest on the night of the palace coup. On the third day after the palace coup, the emperor passed away. He was the only emperor of this dynasty to suffer a coup by his own son. The history books would certainly not be kind to him in the future. It was also his punishment for favoring concubines over his wife and mistreating his legitimate son. 2 months later, Zhao Chengxuan ascended the throne, and I was crowned empress. The concubines who had once been in the fifth prince's residence were also welcomed into the palace and given ranks. Zhao Chengxuan bestowed rewards one by one upon those who had entered the palace to rescue him that day. Only Su Juxiao and Wei Min were ordered by imperial decree to be sent back to their family homes. But as for Wei Min's father's involvement in the rebellion, the left guard manor had already been raided, so she could only buy a courtyard outside and move her mother's memorial tablet there. Zhao Chengxuan wanted control over those recruited bandits. After staying at the border for over a year, her skin had darkened and was no longer as delicate as before. Yet her gaze had become even brighter and more resolute. That was the person I once hoped to become. I felt a bit envious. She touched my belly. Jen, don't be afraid. Sister Su has made thorough preparations. We definitely won't hold you back. Whatever you want to do, we've got your back. I gently hugged her. Okay. Wei Min chuckled lightly and teased. How come you still act spoiled after not seeing each other for so long? Before she could finish, I was pulled back by Chen Yu. She coldly stepped between me and Wei Min. The palace gates are about to be locked. You should leave. Hey, you wolf. Wei Min stopped mid-sentence before leaving. She pointed at her and said to me, Zhen, be wary of this wolf woman. She is still following you now. She must have ulterior motives. A flying dagger drove Wei Min out of Fengyi Palace. Chen Yu turned to look at me with some grievance. Sister, I don't. Why does she say that about me? I sighed. I know. It is fine, I believe you. 7 months into my pregnancy, Zhao Chengxuan hadn't stepped into my palace even once. The once-married couple had completely fallen out. Accidents around me emerged endlessly, and the same was true for those surrounding Zhao Chengxuan. Only when I was about to give birth did I have no choice but to unveil Chen Yu, letting her enter Zhao Chengxuan's world. After being in pain for half the night and giving birth to a prince, I went to Chengshan Palace wearing a hood. Zhao Chengxuan had a knife stuck in his chest and had already fallen unconscious from excessive blood loss. Chen Yu still does things in such a simple and crude manner, making me, who has to clean up the mess, facepalm. When I sat by the bed, he woke up, his lips moved slightly. Why did you insist on giving birth to this child? Then why did your majesty insist on killing him? I retorted. He laughed self-mockingly. If I didn't kill him, would you let me live? I fell silent. The answer was self-evident. When I stood up to leave, he grabbed my sleeve. When you chose me back then, was there even a sliver of affection? I shook my head. And what about your majesty? He looked at me without answering. Perhaps there was some when we first married, but later too much came between us, and under the stain of power, whatever feelings there were had faded away. As I stepped out of the palace doors, a weak yet firm yeses suddenly came from behind me. I suddenly remembered he once asked me what I ultimately wanted from all of this. Now, I could tell him, ever since my rebirth, what I wanted was to no longer be the fish on someone else's chopping board. For a woman to survive, it is just too hard. I've said it before, I am not some fantasy heroine from a storybook. Only by carefully calculating every step in my mind could I reach where I am today. After Zhao Chengxuan passed away, the little prince in swaddling clothes in my arms ascended the throne, and the era name was changed to Tianhua. I served as regent. In the 7th year of Tianhua, I established the imperial examination for women and welcomed Suju Xiao and Wei Min back to court. In the 10th year of Tianhua, the young emperor, following the advice of several old ministers, began seizing power from me. In the 14th year of Tianhua, the young emperor passed away, and I ascended the throne as emperor. A few old ministers argued endlessly, cursing me as a hen crowing at dawn, wanting to unite all officials to boycott court. I smiled and said nothing, until they turned around when they heard no response, only to find the court officials had already knelt all over the floor. I spent 14 years secretly infiltrating most of the court, without anyone knowing. If they were to visit my Shia family charity halls across the land, they would discover that the inner courtyards held great secrets. The children studied martial arts and literature. I hired the best Confucian scholars and martial masters. Over 14 years, with annual martial exams and imperial examinations every 3 years. Under my support, many of them passed the exams and went to train at the border. I prepared new identities for them to walk in the court and on the battlefield. No one knew they were once abandoned children or beggars. Those who married into noble families were countless, and among them, some did have other intentions. But so what? There always needs to be a balance between old and new officials. After the silence, came the official's resounding cry of "Long live, Your Majesty." I sighed. Now, who can say my Shi family has fallen? But I am not in a hurry. I cannot make all women in the world be like me. All I can do is stand in a high position myself, pave the way for them, and tell them there is another way for women to live in this world. As for whether to step out of the inner quarters, it is entirely up to them. I know this path is hard, but fortunately, I am not alone on this path. My gaze swept past Wei Xin and Suju Xiao, finally landing on Chen Yu in the corner, who wore a veil and had been watching me with a beaming smile all along. Thankfully, in this lifetime, all of our endings have changed. Later, I abdicated and picked a child from the royal clan to succeed the throne. I took Chen Yu and Wei Xin down to Jiangnan. While touring the lake from afar, A rough, angry male voice rang out. I am your brother, which means I am the law to you. Today you are marrying whether you like it or not. Right after came the sound of someone falling into the water. The man was thrashing and cursing in the water, while the girl on the shore dusted off her hands and rolled her eyes. Screw your law, you want to break the actual law. His Majesty himself decreed that women are free to marry as they choose, and no one may force or interfere. Looks like you are itching to get paddled at the yamen. With that, the girl strutted off.